Good evening, America, and welcome to this Just the News, Real America's Voice special report, The Push for ESG, Social Credit, and the New Cancel Culture. I'm your host, John Solomon. Tonight, in partnership with our sponsor, Heritage Action for America, we're going to explore how liberal activists and their allies in U.S. financial institutions are pressuring to reshape corporate America and enforce a newfound form of cancel culture on the American people. Instead of products, customers, and return on investment, these activists want companies to focus instead on environmental, social, and governance issues. In other words, the liberal policy agenda of the Democratic Party. You may have heard of the acronym ESG, but could still be wondering, what does it mean? And if that's the case, you're not alone. In fact, about 1 in 4 Americans incorrectly believe the letters stand for earnings, stock, and growth. Sounds reasonable. Just 24% of retail investors who were surveyed recently could correctly define what ESG investing stands for. What is it? It stands for environment, social, and governance. The letter E covers a liberal policy agenda to eliminate fossil fuels in favor of subsidized energy sources like solar and wind, and force the filing of public climate change disclosure forms. The letter S represents the liberal goal of social change that imposes critical race theory, pro-abortion policies, and transgender activism within the workplace and in schools. And the G, well, it's all about meeting employee race quotas, setting funds aside for ESG goals, and social credit scores for further financial approval. Tonight, we're going to hear from political leaders and experts who say the ESG agenda hurts employees, customers, employers, retirees, and outside investors alike, and it looks a lot like the Chinese social score system. You also will hear about the efforts from grassroots activists and political leaders in states like Florida, Oklahoma, and elsewhere, where efforts to defeat ESG are well underway. Now, we always want to thank our friends at Heritage Action for America for partnering with us tonight so we can have this essential conversation. Now, earlier this year, Oklahoma's Republican Governor Kevin Stitt created waves across the country by signing into law a major anti-ESG bill called the Energy Discrimination Elimination Act of 2022. This act will now require the state of Oklahoma to disassociate from financial organizations that boycott the energy industry. And we're lucky enough to kick off tonight's conversation with Governor Stitt. Governor, great to have you on the show, sir.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be with everybody tonight.
Yeah, such an important conversation. And you guys in Oklahoma, you're leading the way. You, of course, have one of the most important energy industries in the country. 6% of your jobs, I think, come from the energy industry, about triple the average in other states. Why is this legislation that you signed so important to the people of Oklahoma?
Well, first off, when you think about every president of the United States since 1973 has had an energy independence policy. In other words, let's meet the needs of Americans with our own companies, our own resources, until this administration. And what do? They cancel the Keystone Pipeline. They make it impossible to drill. They're pushing these ESG policies. And here's the problem. It's costing inflation. Everything is costing more. And so we're tired of these companies, these large banks and these investment houses taking pension funds and instead of focusing on returns, focusing on these ESG policies. And as a state, we're not going to invest with them if they're going to be attacking our way of life and if they're going to be attacking our energy industry. And I also like to point out is Oklahoma, we're number 6 in oil production, number 4 in natural gas, but we're also number 2 in wind energy production. We've got some of the cleanest water, cleanest air in the country. We think you have to have an all of the above approach to have a robust energy grid. And so these guys have their head in the sand when they think that you can buy oil from Russia or people that don't like us very much to meet our needs or are pushing these ESG policies. It just doesn't make common sense for most Americans.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. And when you look at what ESG basically paints, it has this utopian goal. Then in a few short years, we're going to have everybody with electric vehicles, no fossil fuels. But the grid, the technology, the capabilities, the cost, all make that unrealistic in the short term. How do governors like you educate the public about the fact that that goal is way farther off in the future than the Democrats appear to acknowledge?
Yeah, I mean, I tell people all the time, if you remember the polar vortex that happened, we had this extreme cold weather in the Midwest, and 40% of Oklahoma's energy comes from renewables, and we're one of only 4 states that can say that. But during that cold spell, you know, the turbines were frozen. We had natural gas that was kind of frozen. And so we normally are less than 5% coal in Oklahoma. We went to like 55% during this 2-week period. And I tell young people that we wouldn't have had coal in Oklahoma, they couldn't have watched TikTok for 2 solid weeks. And, that's funny, but it's also so important for us to educate, to have a reliable energy grid. When you plug your electric vehicle in, or you turn your light switch on, or charge your cell phone at night, where does that come from? It comes from an all of the above approach. And you can't have an honest conversation without talking about clean and burning natural gas and what that means, and an all of the above approach. And so Oklahoma does that better than anybody. We've reduced our carbon emissions in Oklahoma 3 times the national average because of clean burning natural gas. But really, these points, we're not going to invest with companies that are attacking our industry. And why would an investor not want you to be focused on returns and focused on more of these social issues? It just makes no sense to average Americans, and we're pushing back. We're not gonna do business with people that don't promote our assets. I'm the governor of Oklahoma. I'm trying to make my state a top 10 state and protect our industries here.
Yeah, and you have a group of CEOs who maybe some of them don't share the ESG value system, but they're feeling that pressure from these activist investors, these big hedge funds and others that are carrying this out. What message do you send to corporate America for those CEOs who are in the middle on this debate, really don't want to go this direction? I guess you have their back, don't you?
Oh, we 100% do. And I think you're seeing it down in Texas and some other conservative states. We're getting bolder and bolder of just talking common sense. And so I just appreciate you guys highlighting this issue, because I don't think, a retired teacher or law enforcement wants to understand that their pension funds are going to invest not based on returns, but based on what the CEOs, buddies are talking about, a Paris climate agreement. It just doesn't make sense. They're getting out of their lanes. And in Oklahoma, we're not going to allow that. We're not going to do business with folks that are attacking our assets and our industry. So it's really, really simple for me. Over 90% of Oklahomans agree with me on these issues. And I'm going to keep talking about it, being bold. Let's just meet the needs of Americans with our own resources.
Yeah, exactly. That's the first and most important goal. We got about a minute left, so I want to ask you about this. I've seen you more than any other person in the country really make this point really clear. These new regulations, these new strategies, they're going to come at a cost, not to the governments. They're going to come to a cost to everyday investors, pension fund, people have their pensions, and everyday retailers and customers. That message needs to get out, right? These regulations always trickle down to the everyday American, don't they?
Absolutely. Listen, here's what I try to explain to people. I mean, I come from the business world, and the big businesses can survive more regulation. The same people that the left thinks that they're telling people that they're helping, they actually harm. It's 40-year high in inflation. My grocery bills are more. My gas bills are more. All these policies trickle down and hurt the middle class more than anything. And so that's what people don't understand. When you don't have a free market and you've got a heavy-handed regulation that's picking winners and losers, it harms the poor, it harms the middle class, it harms entrepreneurs and new entries into the market. And that's what's wrong with big, heavy-handed regulation from big government. And that's why we believe in smaller government, free enterprise, lower taxes, the freedoms, equal opportunities for everybody. We can't have equal outcomes, and that's what the left tries to push with the social justice stuff. We need to have equal opportunities, and that's the way we are in Oklahoma. Is I want everybody to be successful, but I'm not going to pick winners and losers and try to put my thumb on this industry or that industry. That never works. It hasn't worked in the history of the world, and we need to wake up and push back against some of this stuff.
Yeah, we do. Well, one thing the Oklahoma citizens know well, you're there fighting for those freedoms and to keep this common sense approach to governance instead of this new era that the left is bringing in. Governor, it's a great honor to have you on the show. We're going to keep an eye on Oklahoma. You're leading the charge on this. A lot of people are watching and learning. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, great to have you on, sir. All right, folks, when we come back, the next Speaker of the House of Florida is going to be joining us. To further our discussion, you're going to hear what state legislatures are beginning to do to fight the ESG, just like what the governor was talking about. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break.